Dawn, East African savanna, late dry season. The horizon emerges slowly through a veil of pale dust, where heat from the previous day still lingers just above the ground. The grass is brittle now, yellowed, fragmented, whispering under the movement of a faint wind. Scattered acacia trees cast long, skeletal shadows across the open plains, their branches unmoving in the still air. In the distance, a herd gathers near a shrinking waterhole. African buffalo, dense, dark forms pressed together in quiet vigilance. Their bodies carried away to drought, their movements slower, more deliberate. Heads remain low, but their attention is constant. Ears twitch, nostrils flare. Nothing here moves without being noticed. Beyond them, partially concealed in tall grass that offers us cover with each passing day, another presence waits, a pride of lions. Their outlines are barely distinguishable against the earth, still, patient, conserving energy. Hunger has thinned their margin for error. Every movement must count. There is no sound of pursuit yet, no immediate violence, only distance, observation, calculation. Between predator and prey lies open ground, exposed and unforgiving. There will be no easy approach, no certainty of outcome, only timing, only instinct. Yes, the African buffalo, Censurus Kaffir, is not simply prey. It is a grazer shaped by pressure, evolutionary, environmental, and constant predation. Found across sub-Saharan Africa, its range extends through savannas, floodplains, and open woodlands, ecosystems defined by seasonal extremes. Rain transforms these landscapes into abundant feeding grounds. But in the dry season, when water recedes and vegetation withers, survival narrows into a daily calculation of movement, risk, and endurance. An adult buffalo can weigh over 700 kilograms. Its body is dense, built for both persistence and confrontation. The most defining feature is a horn structure, thick, fused at the base into a solid shield known as a boss, curving outward and upward into sharp, hardened tips. This is not ornamental. It is a defensive architecture, evolved under continuous threat from large predators, particularly lions. Unlike many ungulates that rely primarily on speed, buffalo combine mass, cohesion, and resistance. They do not simply flee. They evaluate. Their social structure reflects this strategy. Herds can range from a few dozen individuals to several hundred, sometimes over 1,000 in optimal conditions. Within these groups, there is no rigid hierarchy like that of primates or wolves, but there is coordination, an emergent order driven by collective awareness. Calves remain toward the center, shielded by adults. Older males, often displaced from breeding groups, may form smaller bachelor herds or exist alone, becoming more vulnerable but also more unpredictable. Buffalo are highly responsive to threat signals. Studies of herd behavior show that individuals react not only to immediate danger, but to the reactions of others, visual cues, sudden movements, shifts in posture. This creates a rapid cascade of awareness, allowing the herd to respond almost simultaneously. When confronted, they may bunch tightly, forming a defensive wall of horns. In other instances, particularly when a calf is seized, they may counterattack. Documented observations describe coordinated efforts to surround predators, charge en masse, and even kill lions. Their diet consists almost entirely of grasses, making them dependent on the health of the land. In the dry season, nutritional value drops sharply. Buffalo must travel greater distances to find adequate forage, often returning to the same diminishing water sources. These predictable patterns increase exposure. Predators learn these routes. They wait where the herd must eventually pass. Lions, Panthera leo, are among the few predators capable of taking down a healthy adult buffalo, but the risk is significant. A single miscalculation can result in severe injury or death. As a result, lions typically target individuals that show weakness, young calves, the elderly, or those separated from the herd. Yet in times of scarcity, when prey becomes harder to isolate, lions may be forced to confront stronger individuals. Hunger alters thresholds. The relationship between lion and buffalo is not a simple predator-prey dynamic. It is a continuous pressure system, refined over thousands of years. Buffalo have evolved not just to escape lions, but to resist them. Lions, in turn, have adapted to overcome that resistance through cooperation, strategy, and timing. In regions like the Serengeti and Kruger ecosystems, this interaction has been extensively studied. Data shows that buffalo make up a significant portion of lion diet in certain seasons, particularly when migratory prey, such as wildebeest, are absent. However, hunts involving buffalo also carry one of the highest failure rates and injury risks for lions. The outcome is never guaranteed. Here, strength alone does not determine survival, nor does speed. It is a balance of endurance, awareness, and decision-making, played out repeatedly, across seasons, across generations. Across evolutionary time, the relationship between lion and buffalo has been shaped not by dominance, but by constraint. Each species operates within limits imposed by physiology, environment, and competition. For the buffalo, survival depends on maintaining access to grass and water while minimizing vulnerability. For the lion, survival depends on securing enough energy to sustain not just the individual, but often an entire pride. These competing requirements converge most sharply during the dry season, when resources compress and movement becomes predictable. Buffalo physiology is built for efficiency in processing low-quality forage. Their digestive system, a complex ruminant structure, allows them to extract nutrients from fibrous grasses that many other herbivores cannot utilize as effectively. This gives them access to a broad feeding niche, but it also ties them closely to the land's condition. When grass is dry and lose protein content, buffalo must increase intake to compensate, spending more time grazing and less time resting. This extended exposure increases the likelihood of predator encounters. Water dependency adds another constraint. Buffalo require regular access to drinking sources, often daily in hot climates. As seasonal waterholes shrink, herds are drawn into concentrated areas where visibility is reduced and escape routes are limited. These locations become focal points of risk. Predators understand this convergence. Lions, in particular, lions themselves are shaped by a different set of pressures. As obligate carnivores, their energy intake is irregular and dependent on successful hunts. A single large kill, such as a buffalo, can sustain a pride for several days, sometimes longer. But the cost of failure is high. Energy spent in an unsuccessful hunt cannot be easily recovered, and repeated failures can lead to starvation, especially for cubs and weaker members of the group. This is where cooperation becomes essential. Unlike most big cats, lions hunt socially. Coordination allows them to exploit larger prey than a solitary hunter could manage. Behavioral studies have shown role differentiation within hunts. Some individuals initiate the approach, others flank, and stronger members may engage directly in the takedown. These roles are not fixed, but emerge through experience and opportunity. Against buffalo, this coordination must be precise. A poorly timed attack can scatter the herd or provoke a countercharge that places the lions at immediate risk. Buffalo, in response, exhibit what researchers describe as collective defense behavior. When threatened, individuals often orient themselves toward the predator rather than away from it. This reduces the chance of being isolated and increases the perceived size and strength of the group. In some documented cases, buffalo have been observed returning to the site of an attack to confront lions and rescue a captured member. Such behavior is not driven by empathy in a human sense, but by instinctive responses that enhance group survival. A fragmented herd is more vulnerable than a unified one. Predation patterns reveal a dynamic balance. In ecosystems where alternative prey is abundant, lions tend to avoid the risk of adult buffalo, focusing instead on easier targets. But when options decline, buffalo become a necessary if dangerous resource. This shift is reflected in injury rates. Field observations in places like Kruger National Park indicate that a significant proportion of adult lions bear scars or permanent damage consistent with buffalo encounters, broken ribs, puncture wounds, and in some cases, fatal injuries. Climate variability further intensifies this interaction. Extended droughts can reduce herd condition, making buffalo more susceptible to predation, while simultaneously increasing the urgency for lions to secure food. Conversely, in wetter periods, dispersed resources reduce encounter frequency, allowing both species to operate with lower immediate pressure. What emerges is not a fixed hierarchy, but a fluctuating equilibrium. Neither species holds absolute control. Each adapts continuously to the other's presence, to the land's changing capacity, and to the constraints of their own biology. In this system, survival is not defined by victory in a single encounter, but by persistence across many. Survival, for the buffalo, is not an individual act, but a distributed one. Each movement within the herd carries information. When grazing, their spacing is not random. It reflects a balance between feeding efficiency and mutual visibility. Calves are positioned inward, surrounded by layers of adults whose orientation shifts subtly in response to sound, scent, and motion. Studies of herd dynamics show that vigilance is shared. Individuals alternate between feeding and scanning, reducing the energy cost of constant alertness while maintaining collective awareness. This system allows the herd to detect threats earlier than a solitary animal could. When lions approach, the response is rarely immediate flight. Instead, there is a moment of compression. Bodies draw closer. Heads lift. The herd reorients into a loose formation, horns facing outward. This posture alters the risk calculation for the predator. A buffalo alone presents a clear target. A unified group presents uncertainty. Lions rely on isolating a single individual. Without separation, the probability of success declines sharply. Yet, cohesion has limits. Terrain can disrupt visibility. Tall grass, uneven ground, or the urgency of thirst can stretch the herd into vulnerable lines. It is in these moments, during movement toward water, or when individuals lag behind, that lions find opportunity. Observational data indicates that most successful lion hunts on buffalo occur when the herd is fragmented, even briefly. A calf strays, an older bull slows. The margin is small, but it is enough. For the lion, hunting buffalo demands a convergence of timing, positioning, and cooperation. The approach is typically low and deliberate, using what cover remains. Wind direction becomes critical. A shift can carry scent toward the herd, triggering early detection. Lions will often circle downwind, minimizing exposure. This can take time, sometimes hours of slow repositioning under heat that drains energy with each movement. Once within range, the pride must commit. There is no gradual escalation. The attack is sudden, directed, and forceful. Some lions drive the herd forward, creating confusion and momentum. Others angle toward the edges, seeking the individual that falters. The objective is not to overpower the herd, but to fracture it, to create a single point of vulnerability within a moving mass. If a target is identified, the engagement becomes immediate and physical. Lions aim to latch onto the flanks or hindquarters, using their weight to destabilize. Larger individuals may attempt to secure the muzzle, obstructing breathing. But against a buffalo, this is rarely clean. The animal resists with force, twisting, charging, using its horns in wide, sweeping arcs. A single impact can injure or kill. This is where instinct and experience intersect. Younger lions may hesitate or misjudge distance, increasing risk. Older, experienced individuals often initiate the most dangerous contact, having learned the precise moment when commitment outweighs caution. Even so, success is not guaranteed. Many hunts end abruptly when the herd regroups, turning outward, forcing the lions to disengage. There is no excess in the system. Every movement carries cost. Every decision has consequence. Within the herd, age and condition quietly shape outcomes. Calves, though protected, are not immune to separation, especially when movement becomes urgent. Their shorter stride and lower endurance create moments of lag, brief gaps that widen under pressure. Older buffalo face a different vulnerability. Years of survival bring experience, but also wear. Teeth erode, slowing feeding efficiency. Muscle mass declines. Reaction time shortens. In observational studies, these individuals are disproportionately targeted, not because they are isolated by chance, but because their limitations subtly alter the herd's rhythm. Predators detect this imbalance not through conscious assessment, but through repeated exposure to patterns that signal opportunity. For lions, such patterns are essential. Hunting success depends less on strength than on reading the movement of the herd, identifying the slight hesitation, the uneven gait, the individual that drifts a fraction too far from protective mass. This process is neither deliberate nor random. It is a refinement of instinct shaped by experience. Field research has shown that lionesses involved in frequent hunts develop higher success rates, not through increased aggression, but through improved timing and positioning. Against buffalo, this refinement becomes critical. There is also a distinction between group hunts and solitary attempts. While prides rely on cooperation, lone lions, often males or displaced individuals, sometimes engage buffalo independently. These encounters are among the most dangerous in the savanna. Without coordinated support, the lion must rely entirely on precision and restraint, often targeting juveniles or compromised adults. Even then, failure is common. Injuries sustained in such attempts can be fatal not immediately, but through infection or inability to hunt thereafter. Buffalo, in turn, are not passive participants in these encounters. When the herd's cohesion holds, their response can shift from defensive to offensive. Documented cases describe coordinated advances toward lions, with multiple individuals charging simultaneously. The objective is not pursuit, but removal, driving the predator beyond a threshold where the immediate threat dissipates. In rare but recorded instances, buffalo have killed lions during these confrontations, using mass and horn force to overpower them. Such outcomes are not anomalies. They are part of the inherent risk structure of the interaction. Environmental conditions continue to shape these dynamics. As the dry season deepens, dust reduces visibility, masking both predator and prey until distance closes abruptly. Waterholes shrink further, concentrating animals into smaller spaces where escape routes are limited and competition intensifies. Nights offer cooler temperatures for lions to hunt, but also reduce visibility, increasing the chance of miscalculation. Daytime hunts, though less common due to heat, may occur when urgency outweighs efficiency. Across all these variables, one principle remains constant. Neither species operates with certainty. The buffalo's strength lies in cohesion, but cohesion can fracture. The lion's advantage lies in strategy, but strategy can fail. Each encounter is shaped by a convergence of factors: age, condition, terrain, timing, none of which can be fully controlled. This is not a contest with a predictable outcome. It is a system of continuous adjustment, where success is measured not in dominance, but in survival over time. The sun has not yet reached its height, but the heat is already rising from the ground in visible waves. The waterhole has contracted further overnight. Its edges churn into dark mud by the weight of hooves. The herd approaches in a stretch formation, drawn by necessity rather than caution. Dust lifts with each step, settling slowly over their backs. There is less space between individuals now. Movement is slower, more deliberate. Several calves remain close to their mothers, but the line is uneven. Toward the rear, an older bull lags, his pace measured, his head lower than the rest. His ribs show faintly beneath the hide. Each step carries weight that the others no longer bear. In the grass beyond the approach, the lions are already in position. They have moved before first light, closing the distance while the air was still cool. Now they remain almost indistinguishable from the ground itself. Their bodies are aligned with the wind, scent carried away from the herd. There is no sound from them, only stillness. The lead buffalo reach the water's edge and begin to drink. Heads lower, ears remain active, but attention divides. The herd compresses further as those behind press forward. The rear line tightens, then stretches again as the older bull slows once more, creating a brief but widening gap. One lioness shifts, barely perceptible. Another follows, angling outward, positioning along the flank. The pride does not move as a single unit. Each adjusts independently, yet with shared direction. The distance narrows. Then, without warning, the stillness breaks. A sudden surge, low, fast, coordinated. The lions erupt from the grass, driving toward the herd's edge. The front of the herd reacts instantly, pulling back from the water, bodies colliding as they attempt to reorient. Dust rises in a dense cloud, obscuring detail. Sound replaces silence. Hoofbeats, sharp exhalations, the deep, resonant calls of alarm. The herd begins to turn, to bunch, but momentum works against them. The rear has not yet aligned with the front. The gap widens for a moment longer. It is enough. One lioness veers sharply, cutting behind the lagging bull. Another closes from the side, forcing him to pivot away from the herd. The separation is not complete, but it is growing. The bull attempts to accelerate, but his stride falters under the sudden demand. Contact a second away. The distance collapses into impact. The first lioness reaches the bull's flank, launching with full momentum. Forelimbs extend and anchored against the side. Her claws find purchase briefly before sliding across the thick hide, but the force is enough to disrupt his balance. The bull pivots sharply, swinging his head in a wide arc. The horns cut through empty air, narrowly missing. A second lioness closes in from behind, targeting the hindquarters. She grips, attempting to pull the rear legs inward, to break forward motion. For a moment, the bull stumbles, his stride falters, weight shifting unevenly. Dust surges upward, reducing the scene to fragments of movement and sound. But he does not fall. With a sudden surge of force, the bull drives forward, twisting his body laterally. The lioness at his flank is forced to release, thrown off balance as he turns into the attack. The second lioness holds for a fraction longer before losing grip, dragged briefly before disengaging to avoid being trampled. The herd, now partially reformed, begins to turn back. Several adults at the edge reorient toward the disturbance, their postures shifting from retreat to confrontation. Heads lower, horns angle forward. The line compresses again, but this time facing outward. The bull is no longer entirely alone. One lioness attempts to re-engage, approaching from the side, but hesitates as the nearest buffalo advance. Their movement is deliberate, not rushed, each step closing distance, reducing space for maneuver. Another lion circles wider, searching for an opening, but the formation holds. Then the first charge comes. A buffalo surges forward, covering ground with surprising speed. The lioness withdraws instantly, pivoting away to avoid direct contact. A second buffalo follows, reinforcing the push. The lions scatter briefly, breaking formation to evade the advancing horns. The injured bull regains footing and moves toward the herd, his pace uneven but persistent. He is not fully stable, his breathing heavier now, sides expanding rapidly, but he continues forward, drawn into protective mass. The opportunity is closing. The lions attempt one final approach, testing the edges, but the herd's cohesion has returned. There is no longer a gap to exploit. Each angle is met with resistance, forward-facing horns, advancing bodies, a unified front that leaves no clear target. Gradually, the lions withdraw, not abruptly, but in measured steps, increasing distance while maintaining awareness. Their bodies lower again as they retreat into grass, conserving what remains of their energy. The dust begins to settle. The waterhole remains, unchanged. The herd reforms around it, though tighter now, more alert. The bull stands within them, marked but upright. No kill has been made, but the cost has not been avoided. The herd does not immediately return to stillness. Movement continues, but it is altered, tighter, more deliberate. Individuals remain closer than before, their spacing reduced as they re-establish cohesion. Heads lift more frequently between mouthfuls of water. Ears pivot with heightened sensitivity. The disturbance has passed, but its effect lingers in posture and pace. At the center, the older bull stands among them. His flanks rise and fall with visible effort. Superficial wounds mark his hide, parallel lines where claws made contact, shallow but exposed. Blood is minimal, but the strain of the encounter is evident in his stance. He shifts weight unevenly, favoring one side, conserving movement where he can. In buffalo, injury is not assessed in isolation. Its consequence is measured against the demands of the environment. A wound that might seem minor becomes significant if it alters mobility, if it slows response time, if it increases the distance between the individual and the herd during movement. Over the coming days, the bull's position within the group will depend on his ability to maintain pace. If he lags again, the risk will return, not from memory, but from pattern. The herd begins to move away from the waterhole in a more unified formation. Calves are drawn inward more tightly now, shielded within a denser core. Adults at the perimeter remain outward-facing longer than usual, scanning before committing to forward motion. These shifts are subtle, but consistent with documented responses following predator encounters. Vigilance increases temporarily, then gradually stabilizes as no immediate threat reappears. For the lions, the the outcome is different. The failed hunt represents a measurable loss of energy. Each burst of speed, each physical engagement, carries a metabolic cost that cannot be recovered without food intake. The pride regroups at a distance, settling into shade where available. Breathing slows. Movement becomes minimal. There is no visible agitation, only conservation. In lion ecology, unsuccessful hunts are common, but their frequency matters. Repeated failures can weaken individuals, particularly younger members who rely on shared kills. If the pride includes cubs, the impact extends beyond the hunters themselves. Milk production declines when females lack sufficient nutrition, affecting cub survival rates over time. The decision to target buffalo reflects necessity rather than preference. It indicates a landscape where easier prey may be less accessible, where the margin between energy gain and loss is narrowed. Such conditions often correlate with seasonal decline, reduced vegetation, dispersed herds, increased competition among predators. In the hours following the encounter, the lions will not pursue again immediately. Recovery takes precedence. Muscles require time to dissipate fatigue, to restore the capacity for another coordinated effort. They will wait, through heat, through inactivity, until conditions shift again in their favor. Around the Waterhole, other species begin to return. Smaller antelope approach cautiously, maintaining distance from the buffalo. Birds settle along the edges, drawn by insects stirred from the disturbed ground. The system resumes its broader rhythm, each species adjusting to residual tension left by the encounter. No single event defines the balance here, but each leaves a trace, subtle, cumulative, shaping behavior in ways that extend beyond the moment itself. As the day advances, the landscape settles into a quieter rhythm, but the effects of the encounter continue to unfold in less visible ways. The herd moves steadily across the dry grassland, maintaining a tighter formation than before. Their path is not random. It follows known routes between diminishing patches of forage and the remaining water sources that define survival in this season. The older bull remains with them, but his position shifts subtly. He no longer drifts at the rear. Instead, he holds closer to the center, where movement is slower and protection is greater. This adjustment is not a conscious strategy, but a consequence of reduced capacity. By staying within the herd's core, he minimizes the risk of isolation, though it comes at the cost of reduced access to fresh grazing at the leading edge. Over time, such trade-offs accumulate. Individuals in declining condition often become less efficient feeders, further weakening their resilience. In studies of buffalo populations, it is observed that injured or aging individuals frequently transition between herd positions, sometimes eventually falling behind altogether. When that happens, the protective structure of the group no longer applies. Mortality rates increase sharply outside the herd, not only from predation, but from exhaustion and reduced foraging success. Survival, in this context, is not secured by a single escape, but by sustained integration within the group. The pride of lions, meanwhile, remains inactive to the peak heat of the afternoon. Their bodies are stretched along shaded ground, respiration slow, conserving what energy remains. There is no urgency in their stillness. This is a necessary pause. Research into lion hunting patterns shows that activity peaks during cooler periods, dawn, dusk, and night, when the balance between effort and efficiency improves. Yet the failed hunt has consequences that extend beyond immediate hunger. It influences future decisions. Lions learn through repetition, not in the way of deliberate planning, but through reinforcement of successful patterns. An unsuccessful engagement with a buffalo herd may shift their focus temporarily toward alternative prey, if available. If not, it may refine their next attempt, adjusting approach angles, timing, or target selection based on the subtle cues experienced in the previous encounter. The ecosystem itself absorbs the event without interruption. Grazing pressure continues to shape the vegetation. Buffalo movements influence grass regrowth patterns, nutrient distribution, and the availability of habitat for smaller species. Predation pressure from lions regulates herd dynamics, often removing weaker individuals over time, indirectly supporting the overall health of the population. These processes are not guided, not balanced by intention, but they produce a system that remains functional across fluctuating conditions. As evening approaches, temperatures begin to fall. Shadows lengthen again across the plains, and with them, activity returns. The buffalo will continue to move, to graze, to drink, repeating the cycle that defines their existence. The lions will rise as well, their rest complete, their need unchanged. The encounter at the Waterhole does not end their interaction. It is one moment within a continuous sequence, one that will repeat, with variation, as long as both species remain bound to the same land, the same limits, and the same necessity to endure. Evening settles without announcement. The light fades gradually, dissolving the sharp edges of the day into a muted horizon where movement becomes less distinct. Across the savanna, the same forces remain in motion, though less visible now. Hunger, vigilance, fatigue, and the quiet persistence of survival. The buffalo herd continues forward, intact but altered in ways that cannot be measured in a single moment. One individual carries the strain of what is past, his survival not secured, only extended. Around him, the structure of the herd holds, not out of intent, but as a pattern shaped by generations under pressure. Elsewhere, the lions rise again. Their earlier failure does not define them. It becomes part of a sequence: attempt, loss, adjustment, return. There is no memory of defeat in the way it is understood elsewhere, only the continuation of need. Between them, nothing has been resolved. There is no outcome that concludes the interaction, no balance that remains fixed. Each encounter shifts probability, not certainty. Strength is tested, but not absolute. Vulnerability appears, then disappears, then returns in another form. This is the structure of the system they inhabit. Not conflict, but repetition. Not victory, but persistence. The land does not favor one over the other. It does not account for effort or injury or survival narrowly achieved. It offers conditions, and within those conditions, each life continues only as long as it can meet them. In this, there is no excess, no pause beyond what is required, only the ongoing rhythm of movement and resistance, where survival is temporary, and the balance is never still.